This is part 2 of the interview with Sonia McNally. Enjoy. No, exactly, because you're led to believe that nobody does that sort of thing. But in actual fact, everybody does it, really. Anybody that actually succeeds at things does it.
Talking of winging it, I remembered that there's a chap I worked for yesterday called Matt Button. So I was doing some scenic painting on a film set, and he had some work locally. So I went on a part of this freelancing sort of cycle of things. I went on this course. It was for art directors. So you'd learn about surveying a site for a film, building a model. Anyway, I sat next to this guy called Matt, and it was about a 5-day course. So we kind of got to know each other a bit. And at the end, he said, "I'm extending the hand of friendship now. You know, this will never come back." And it was another one of those moments, because I'd said to him throughout the course, you know, I'm doing all this like party sets, model making, costumes, props. I said, I'm more interested at the moment in getting into construction. So I want to be a set builder, you know, on the carpentry side.
Right.
And he said, "Oh, I'll see if I can get you a job." Anyway, it sort of got left like that. In between doing some freelancing, I was riding rickshaws in the city of London, you know, taking passengers.
Okay, hang on a minute. Where did that come from?
It was it was a sort of filler job. If there weren't any
Okay.
freelance positions, I'd just go and do a couple of days on the rickshaw.
Yeah, okay. So what gave you the idea to do rickshaw?
I think one of my jobs was working at a costume shop in Spitalfields,
Oh,
and
okay.
the rickshaw riders were all around. So I stopped the costume job, and I just did, I don't know, it didn't last very long. I quite enjoyed it because it got you really, really fit.
Yes, it would do, I'm sure.
And, you know, especially if you had a couple of big people on the back of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, Matt, I remember doing this once. He phoned up and he said, "I've got you a job at Ralph Lauren." And I was like, "What?" He said, "I've got you a job at Ralph Lauren. You need to turn up, you know, tomorrow at whatever time." So I turned up, and this is over in West London. So I remember it all being near the Hoover building. And this big South African guy was sort of looking down on me going, "Oh, hi, Sonia, you're a carpenter." And I just said, "Yes." And then he said, "Oh, great. When the wood arrives, you can make this." And he handed me these drawings. And I was looking at this kind of, you know, these plans of what I found out to be a louver door. And every time the buzzer went, I just went like, "Oh my God, that's the wood." Anyway, the wood turned up. I did manage to make the louver door, which was a feat of I was in this workshop with all these other kind of, I don't know, these 25-year-old lads. It was a period of my life that was such good fun. I was the only girl, really. We were in the workshop knocking out these scenery for the windows for Ralph Lauren in New Bond Street. We did 3 weeks in the workshop, and then we did a week of nights installing. So because I was like the smallest member of the team, I was quite often sent in to, you know, go on top of the wardrobe into this little gap and just screw the, you know.
Yeah, a bit like a chimney sweep, you mean?
A bit like a chimney sweep. And I remember one time I had these silky boxer shorts on, some jeans over the top, and I had to like squeeze through this little gap to go and fit something inside of a tiny space, because the windows were only about 1.5 meters deep. So you're putting all this quite big stuff in. You're making like a, I don't know, American ranch, whitewashed set in there. There's very little space to move around at the end. And I slid in this thing and the jeans got left behind on the outside of the hole. It was all like that. It was just, it was just hilarious.
Yes, it's, yes, amazing.
I did that for a long time, probably about, I don't know, 5 years maybe.
Right.
Perhaps more.
So what happens now?
In the background, I decided I'm going sort of back to this surreal theatrical visuals that I just can't ever get away from. I decided to make this, I started making these lanterns. Oh, so one of my freelancing jobs, actually, I did quite a lot of community artwork. I worked for this great company called The Whole Hog, who was local in Kent. And we did all kinds of things. Like I did a lot of mobile art workshops, going out in a big van and setting up down on Romney Marsh, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we also did things like giant carnival floats for the Hive, a water festival kind of thing. And also I'd worked for another company called Strange Cargo, just as a builder for their constructions, really. So I had all this experience of making lanterns, and I thought I'm going to make this kind of, I didn't even know what it was when I started. I just made these giant kinetic lanterns and these huge sets that I ended up doing a lot of weddings. So I had these huge willow sticks. I'd make these things you could have a table of 20 under, all decorated with lanterns, flowers. I got this massive piece in Brides magazine, which really, I was doing a lot of mail order lanterns at that time, and people would turn up with a card going, "We're getting married, can I have 20 of these?" and whatever. And then I also used to go and set up in people's marquees. So basically it was a sort of lighting business in the end.
Yeah.
And I quite often have my dad going in the background going, "Oh, you mustn't put more than 20 lanterns on that load there because you'll have a problem."
Right.
On someone's big day. So it's quite a lot of pressure. I also did quite a few S&M parties that used to be held in the upstairs of the Bear and Key in Whitstable. That was like a pub.
It was like a pub, but wasn't.
It was a pub at the time.
No.
They had this big upstairs room, and a woman called Bunny, who's a Whitstable character, used to organise these S&M parties, and she'll go, "Have you got anything for this one?"
Yeah.
And I remember I did an Easter thing, or she was having an Easter party. I made this giant egg, and I got one of my friends who was a dancer to, she had some kind of skimpy S&M outfit on. She was dancing inside the lantern egg, and would lift the top, and, I had it on a kind of pulley. I was wearing these kind of plastic breasts and some hot pants. So every time I pulled the thing up, there was this crinkling thing going on. I can see I'm losing you here, Vic. But
no, this is brilliant because because I just thought, well, anyway, no, this is another joke. I'm trying to not get.
Anyway, they used to go on. She also used to run these discos, like the Dirty Bitches disco. That was her, that was her. Yeah. And I used to just provide this stuff. And
so we've really got to the sort of the underbelly of Faversham.
Well, that was in Whitstable, actually.
Oh, that's in Whitstable. Oh, well, even better. So what period of time was this in Whitstable? Because Whitstable was an interesting place.
It must have been 10 years ago, I'm thinking.
Oh, okay.
Must have been, yeah.
Because Whitstable, I used to play Whitstable quite a bit back in the day, and it was literally the place that time forgot. And then suddenly people recognised that it existed, and now, of course, it's nothing like the sleepy little fishy.
Yeah.
So, no, that was obviously well after that period of time. But, you would have a lot of characters like that in Whitstable back in the day.
Yeah. That was all going on. Ralph Lauren was going on. The party thing sort of took off. And then quite a keen sailor and windsurfer. And I had quite a nasty windsurfing accident where I dislocated my shoulder.
Oh, wow. Ooh, nasty.
So I couldn't then go and I had a period of time off work, basically, because I couldn't really move around.
What happened? Because I used to windsurf a lot, but
yeah, I just in Whitstable, I persuaded one of my friends, Kester, to come out. He was going, it's far too windy. I'll come after work though. Yeah. And the sea was kind of boiling. It was going in all kinds of directions. So we shouldn't have really gone out. But luckily I was inshore and he was there, and he sort of dragged the kit out of the water, and I got myself.
Just literally pulled you off the board and just.
I just kind of somersaulted, left my arm behind. The wetsuit sort of held everything together.
Yeah, held everything together,
into hospital and got that sorted out. But basically, during that time of recovery, I thought I need to go to art college.
That's a bit retrospective.
So yes, well, I know that you say that because when I was doing the freelancing in London, I've been working on adverts. I was getting more, people going, can you just do this? We want the reference of, want this look to look like Picasso's, whatever. I'd have to go, I don't know what that is. And of course, we didn't have a smartphone at the time, so you couldn't go to the toilet and Google and come back and go, yes, no problem. And I was doing quite a few music videos, as the art department in quite a few music videos, film stuff as well as all the other freelancing. So I thought, actually, this is what I need, the grounding in art.
Well, this is another thing that comes up, I must say, that feeling that you're actually sort of slightly the imposter type of thing, that is quite a consistent theme with artists and musicians. It's a bit like, well, people think I know all this stuff, but I sort of blag my way through it type of thing. And I do actually think we were talking about the trickstery attitude, nature of very creative people. And a lot of it is like that. Like you've said, somebody said, can you do something? And go, yep.
I'm thinking, Picasso, what's that?
Picasso, he owes me a fiver. He's a good mate of mine,
So, yes.
I bet that was an interesting experience then, going to art college and then doing.
It was. So there were two colleges in Canterbury. So I was living in Whitstable. I was.
So you're living in Whitstable at this point, right? Okay.
I'm living in Whitstable at this point, yeah. So I had done a stint in London, then living in Whitstable. And there were two colleges in Canterbury. So there was Caiad, which was the one I mentioned previously, and then there was Canterbury Christchurch University. Yeah. So I went to both to have a look, just thinking, just make this easy for myself, have it on the doorstep. So I went to what was at the time Caiad, and it was all very conceptual, and it sounded like you just got given a title of a project, got left to your own devices, and produced whatever work you produced. And I was thinking, that's a bit like my daily working life, make Studio 54 or whatever, go away and do it. So I knew I could do that, so I didn't really want to do that. And then I went down to Christchurch, and one of he must have been the head of department at the time, Dave Shutt. He's been trained in the kind of British School of Art. I don't know if you know the artist Ewan Uglow.
No, I don't know.
He pretty much trained all of my art teachers. So they all studied with him. And then it sort of goes back through time. But he was offering observational drawing and painting, analytical work. And I just, when I was in the interview, I just got this feeling of this is the grounding here.
Yeah, I get this now. This
So,
makes absolute sense to me.
But he said to me, they were a month into the course, and he said, "Oh, you can't start this year. You've missed too much. You know, we're taking a real chance on you." So I took some of my drawings from GCSE or whatever, or just general, and he went, "Oh, you know, you've missed too much to start now." So he said, "Go off and do a load of life drawing." And you know, what I ended up doing was going to CAIAD to do the access course. So I did that for 2 terms, I think, probably in the end. I did sign up to adult ed life drawing. Didn't feel like I knew what I was doing at all. And then started the following year at Christchurch. So, and then I embarked on a part-time degree in painting and drawing. The first year was really good because it was sort of like a foundation year, which I'd never had, which I wish I'd had, you know, because it's just a lot of fun and you experiment with all kinds of things. So you got taken around all the different disciplines: sculpture, ceramics, painting, printmaking, and then you sort of settle on what you're going to do for the rest of your course. So I chose painting. I really like printmaking, but I thought painting is the grounding. Just stick with it for now. So I sort of forced myself to take on the hard work, really, of learning to paint, which you know, anybody who thinks it's like sitting around in his studio, flicking a bit of paint around and drinking tea, it's got,
no.
I realized it's actually a very, you know, you have to be like a dog with a bone, really, not let go of the bone until you've got all the marrow that you want out of it, and rigorously stick to your ideas. You know, there's no, if you start to flick around. So what it's given me is a very strong disciplined approach to making artwork, and a very keen analytical eye.
But obviously that's doing something like that later on, when you've had a lot of experience creating artwork, has a different feel to it, doesn't it? Again, this is something that happens quite a lot. There's a few people that I've interviewed recently, one guitarist and another one a drummer, who, you know, great players and everything. But it was all that sort of thing when they got to the point where they had to sort of teach it. Well, in fact, I can think of 3 people literally off the top of my head, exactly the same thing. It's like, yeah, what is it that I actually do? How do I do this? And what is that? You know, people ask them questions and a bit like, well, I don't really know. Hang on a minute, let's go away and find it. So they were retrospectively putting in all that stuff that people would assume that they knew, because they were sort of doing it, but not knowingly doing it, if you see what I mean. But I think it adds something completely different than if you learn that early on, before you're actually creating things or have created things or even got a voice. Maybe that's a better way of saying it.
I think that is the case. I didn't have a creative voice really when I was younger, and I sort of gained it through all the work I did, the freelancing work. But then I only really realized about it, I think, when I went to art college.
Yeah, amazing.
I was very lucky because I got the tail end of that teaching, which no longer exists. So I was very privileged, really, to have this discovery learning, you know, art course where I had teachers who were, I had 3 teachers who were all very different, really, in their, well, they sort of came from different angles, let's say, and it made you sort of push and pull yourself until you found what your angle is. Yeah,
cool. So you finished the course, your arm's better, you're not having to walk around in a wetsuit anymore to keep your arm in. No, I'm only joking.
I had a baby in year 2.
Oh, come on. How did that? You've missed all of that out. Come on.
I also was. I went on a field trip. So I went on one field trip at college. That when I said I was at the tail end of the course, there was a field trip to Dartmoor landscape painting. So I did that, and then after that they stopped, and I'd met this girl at college called Jenny, who I still work with now, and we said, well, let's, if the college aren't doing them anymore, let's do them ourselves. So we started up our own Dartmoor field trip, and we thought all the people who went on the college one would come, but they didn't. So we started a new groove with that, and that's still going today.
Okay, so where's this baby appear from?
Baby, so I was married, living in Whitstable.
Oh, okay. Passed over that very carefully.
Not married anymore.
No, that's what I mean. No, that's why I'm always interested when people they don't talk about that. So sorry, I'm nosy.
Yeah,
so,
well,
you were living in Whitstable. You've now got a baby, and you're doing the second year of a course.
I'm in the second year of the course. I'm doing it part-time, so
this is all big stuff now, right? So
it's all big stuff. It was
very transformational, right?
Yeah, very hard work. So basically every time I took my baby to nursery, oh no, hang on. First of all, my mum and dad looked after my baby for 2 days a week. So I went to college 2 days a week.
Yeah.
And I did all the baby stuff the other days.
That's amazingly hard to do.
Yeah. I mean, that was such a commitment from them, really.
Well, no, for you.
And for me. I was exhausted. And basically any day when I wasn't at college, as soon as my baby went to sleep, so he would have these nice 3-hour sleeps, and I would just pick up the paintbrushes. I wouldn't feel like painting, and I would just start painting. So and there wouldn't be any, I'd be like, okay, he's asleep, I'm going to do the painting. And then I managed to finish my course doing that.
Yeah.
It was very interesting, actually, because the topic of my dissertation at the end was the goddess. So becoming the mother in life, and then looking at the mother in mythology. I was looking at all the iconography of the goddess, and became fascinated how the goddess sort of transformed to Eve and then the Virgin Mary, and that's still a big point of interest, and probably is sort of sums up my artistic theme that I'll probably have for my whole life, really.
Yes. Now this is interesting to me. So I just wanted to point that out, because it's very easy for people to go, yeah, I had a baby and I'm doing this. It's like, you had a baby, right? Okay, so you've got a baby and you're doing the course. I mean, that's just like ridiculously complicated, hard work, and I think we've got a tendency in society to ignore all of that, bringing up children. We sort of ignore it. It's bizarre. I mean, it's one of the most important things that humans do. And it's
I saw it as the same thing, though. You're bringing on your creativity and you're bringing forward a human.
Yes.
So you're doing the same thing. It's just a juggling act of.
Yes. Yeah, but it's also filled with, the amount of, how can I put this? It increases the commitment to anything you're doing tenfold.
Yeah, definitely did for me.
Yeah.
Totally. It brought out this well, I probably always had it, but very determined, stand aside, I'm coming through sort of streak.
Yeah.
And I just thought every time I put my baby into nursery, I'm not going to mess around at college. I'm just going to work like mad.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And I did actually get a first class degree, and I won a painting prize as well.
Oh, that's amazing.
Completely delighted about,
that's incredible. Yeah, amazing.
It's all
amazing.
It's all been worth it.
So going to this thing about, how you hit on the idea about the sort of goddess aspect, the mother, and how that has changed, how it's been sort of pictured.
Reappropriated.
Yeah. What got you into that? Was it literally like you thought, I'm going to do the goddess thing, or was there something floating around in your thinking?
There must have been, things floating around. I mean, always had spiritual interest.
Right, because you've not included that at all in your so up to now. So there's always been something floating around, because that's why I was interested about you saying about India.
Oh yeah, I spent a lot of time in temples and
right. You see, because
observing.
You haven't said that up to now, and I was rather gathering that there was a lot of stuff unsaid. So that informs a lot of what's going on. I'm gathering here.
It ties in actually. Now I'm thinking about it. It's the visual theatrical. So in India, for example, these huge, wonderful processions of, dancing alive, color, something mad happening, and then, working on a surreal set or making some crazy kinetic lantern that does something mad at someone's wedding, when they're probably not expecting that, and just adding to that, it all ties in. So all the ideas really come from spirit.
Yes.
Place.
The thing it struck me when you were talking about that is that type of shadow play stuff that you get in Oriental, like puppeting, and they're amazing, aren't they? They'll do the sort of religious stories in puppet form and all the rest of it. It's incredible.
I remember from Indonesia seeing a lot of that stuff and going to shows, and
and it's that sort of thing that it's an illusion, but it isn't. It's a shadow, but it's real. It's that type of thing of playing with, well, what's really real and what's, and all those sort of, you could sort of look at all the metaphorical aspects of that. And of course, if you look at like set design and all that type of thing, it's all an illusion, isn't it? What you were doing was all illusionary. You see something and it looks like either the real thing, or it makes you think that you're in a dream of the thing. So it's a very similar sort of point. So okay, good. This is an interesting thread to pull on now. Not to say that the other stuff wasn't interesting. It was just so unbelievably extraordinary.
I think if somebody said, what kind of life do I want to lead? Or I want to lead an extraordinary life. That's, that's it really.
Yes, totally.
So we got good or bad, it's just extraordinary.
So we got the baby, we got the art competition, we've got the degree. Now what?
I was just trying to think about how this happened, but I got a job teaching. I think it was a little place in Whitstable, wanted an art teacher, so I just went forward for that. And it was a kind of room with, 8 people painting from a model or still life. And then that very quickly, that was hard to organize because I had my baby then was about 2, so I'd have to take him with me in the pram. It was an evening thing, and it was all a little bit fraught. trying to do everything. And so I got a job with adult ed, which I thought this would be better. I could do this daytime. I don't think I really wanted to teach. If anybody said, do you want to teach? I think my mum had something to do with this, actually. She might have gone, why don't you do a bit of teaching now? You know, as she does in her little subtle ways. So
yeah.
I took this adult ed job, and then they wanted us to do this teacher qualification. And I thought, oh no, you know, I'm exhausted. I've just finished my degree and they want me to do this thing. Anyway, they said, we're going to pay for it. You know, it's free. And then they changed that. The government changed things, I think. And they said, oh no, it's £500 a year. But by the time I'd kind of gone down the road with the thought, and I thought, okay, well, this will be useful. And it turned out to be a PGCE, and the particular year I did it also, as well as qualifying me for lifelong learning, which is basically adult ed or adults that want to learn. It also qualified me for secondary school. So I thought, actually, this is going to be quite useful. And then my mum was also talking to me about much further down the line. She said, I'd started doing building projects, and she said, why don't you do a bit of supply teaching just to, you know, help everything, you know, ease the cogs a little. And so I did I got the PGCE. I had a really wonderful teacher. She led me on to, she said to me after the course finished, she's actually become a really good friend now, Katie. She introduced me to a woman she knew who was running an MA called Myth, Cosmology and the Sacred at Christchurch.
Right.
And she said, I just want you to meet Wilma, because your interest in feminine spirituality, and Wilma is also interested in this. And at the time, I think I was thinking, you know, I was so far into educating myself at that point, I was thinking I might as well just do a PhD now, be done with it. So anyway, I didn't end up doing that, but I did meet Wilma. Wilma introduced me to a lady called Angela Voss, who was running the program.
I know Angela Voss.
Yeah. Well, she's also been key. I can get onto that a little later, but right. Wilma basically said, yes, you know, I think we can employ you on this MA. Then Angela sort of took over. I was running sessions with Myth, Cosmology and the Sacred on statue magic or theurgic practice in the cathedral.
Wow.
So I just have to slightly backtrack, because as soon as I'd left art college, pretty much, I was called back in to teach there as well. So I'd started the PGCE, I was working for adult ed, and then I was also working for Christchurch teaching the new cohorts coming in, because I'd had that very, you know, strict observational training. They wanted me to be able to pass that on.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about that was it gone completely from discovery learning from when I was on the course to I was delivering bite-sized chunks of information. And I was just thinking, art education now would be so hard for someone to really grasp what it is to be an artist and have the artistic mindset. Anyway, that aside. So yeah, then working on the MA, just little bits and pieces. And I'd also got a commission for the Church of England to do what turned out to be a rather large piece of glass. So it was a 12-meter etched glass screen to do with telling the story of St. Alphege, who was a local saint. And that was just like the best job I've ever had. And I'd love to do more stuff for the church.
Yeah.
But basically, because of that, I set up a drawing course at Canterbury Cathedral, so that I could see Christian iconography through the eyes of my 10, 12 students. So that ran on for quite a few years as well. So that's a strand going through. You'll probably be able to see that I'm always doing many more than one thing.
Yeah.
I say portfolio working. It's kind of.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Because now what we've got, yeah, I've been sort of working on a book for a while, quite a while, and I'm rubbish at things like this because I get bored. But I started off by doing loads of blogs, and the idea really was to sort of mix things like music and, you know, the psychological thing and what I term as magical thinking into that. And obviously, you know, when you look back in, say, to medieval Europe or whatever, people thought more magically about everything. Everything had a symbolism. And of course, a bit like you're saying, like with art, now art education has lost that sort of thread of how people saw the discipline. Now it's taught in a different way. And of course, the problem is it won't take long before we won't remember how people saw the discipline at all, because it would have gone. And we've got that with the way that we think and the way that you look back at people. And I hear this. Only the other day I had a kid make some comment about a history teacher actually saying that people in the past were superstitious and stupid. And I went, what? That is ridiculous. And of course, you know, once I get off from that, that's it. Then, you know, I say, come on, you've got to think about this. You know, people, if you go back far enough, if you were a hunter, you've made everything. The bow, and I told him how you made an arrow. And this kid was like completely blown away by the skill that a person had. And I said, they weren't stupid. They weren't superstitious. What they did worked for them. It might not be the way we understand the world. It's a different place in the head, but they weren't stupid. And of course, we go back to the sort of medieval thing, you know, being able to see, like you're saying, working in a place where these craftsmen were building things. But it wasn't just, oh, stick that up there, mate, type of idea. It was, everything was done with that way of thinking about what you were doing. You know, and those layers of that sort of spiritual direction in it. So I'm really intrigued by that, and that you're obviously getting that mindset by being in the place and doing the drawings there and working with people and trying to see through their eyes about how they're seeing the things as well. Oh, that's amazing.
My passion, actually, it's funny that medieval became the medieval glass, and I realised I've worked in the cathedral because I was down there quite a lot when I was at college drawing, and I've worked in the cathedral for probably over 20 years now. And the medieval glass and the medieval storytelling is the thing that is my, you know, that's my passion.
That's amazing. That is amazing. So, did you? Here's just a question. Do you feel with that way of seeing the world, did that start to change how you worked?
Almost certainly. Yeah. In fact, that
I think
job,
it's very difficult for it not to affect you.
Yeah. I think I've always been aware that I can very easily sort of pass over into the imaginative world. In fact, it's actually quite hard to stay in the, you know, whatever the reality, the grind of daily life. I'm quite often over into the imagination.
I was going to say the existence in the last 2 years of like reality.
There's nowhere else to go.
You look at this and go, look, no one has a clue what's going on at all. and there doesn't seem to be anything real in or permanent or anything. So yeah, at the moment. So I think that's probably maybe a good outcome of this COVID.
I think, yeah, at the same time as that, doing that theurgic practice and then doing it with groups of students, I was also having quite a lot of spiritual direction with the Church of England.
All right.
So the two things are obviously probably poles apart, I'm guessing. But I was, because I was working on the window for the church, I was quite involved in the church community and the people there. And I became very interested in Ignatian spirituality. So one of the spiritual directors I had, a lady called Sarah, I took the rough designs of the window to her and said, oh, I'm doing this. And she started doing this Ignatian practice with me.
Okay, is this Saint Ignatius?
Yes, of Loyola. So that really informed how I started to think about things. And I was doing the window at the same time. Some very interesting experiences with that, like an encounter with an angel in my studio, a very visceral encounter.
Oh wow! Come on, tell me about that. Because I was, yeah, go for it.
Just drawing. I made, so in order to avoid artistic problems, and because I had to make the cartoons for the window, and then they were going to be the thing that I then made the glass from, I thought, to avoid any problems in scale or proportion or anything, I completely surveyed the area, the gaps between the windows in the church. I laid out a small scale version. I started doing my sketching on that. Actually worked on life-size drawings for the actual cartoons that I then worked on to make the glass. When I was drawing one of the pieces, I must have been lost in my own world. They were quite big pieces. You know, it was a 12-meter long stretch of glass. I found myself under the armpit of or wing of an angel, and the smell of the kind of feathers and the man was very quite.
So did you actually see it, or was it just like you felt?
It was both. It was seeing and the smell and the hearing as well. You know, this like movement of the, and then that was gone. I think, I don't know, something happened and it was gone. And I remember coming in to look at the work, and even my husband at the time said, "Oh, that's good," and you know, that would be something I wouldn't have heard very often from him.
All right.
So I was sort of obviously taken to another place. I had another very interesting experience with that job, that when it was all completed, there was a blessing of the window with the then Bishop of Dover, who came up to me afterwards and said, he kind of caught me in the nave, which is just outside the main body of the church. And he said, "Oh, you've really shown people something about God with this window." And I was like, "Thank you very much. That's okay." And then he said, "You'll be, I can see you're going to be called to become a vicar." So I was quite taken aback by that, and then sort of went back in for the rest of the service, just in kind of shock. And then he sort of called me in for a meeting afterwards at some point later, and I was doing I'd entered a video symposium at Christchurch, and I'd got in, and I was just kind of staggered, and I thought, gosh, what am I going to do? I had a friend who'd done a PhD who was talking about using empirical research, so she said, go and interview these people and find out what they say. So there was a very interesting sort of Church of England interlude in amongst everything, which I'm jumping around a bit here, I know, but I'm involved in a pilgrimage at the moment, and I've just recently found out this thing about pilgrimages, the kind of curiositas, which is the distractions en route, and then the actual pilgrimage, which is the focused activity that you're meant to be doing. And I feel at the moment I'm completely swept round into the curiositas phase, you know, since that incident, which was quite focused and quite, you know, I think there's always an element of myself that is seeking the divine. And I've noticed that in my work. I also notice it in my teaching now, that not that I'm putting it onto people, but it's just around. There's always that thing. And I think the whole goddess thing was about that. And looking back and looking forward, I can see there is seeking the divine. So I don't know how the, you know, priest or vicar role would ever play out.
That might be just somebody's way of explaining what they are experiencing themselves, as the Bishop of Dover, whatever he's picking up from the experience of the artwork that you've done, the window, that was the way he expressed it to you.
I think he's saying, you know, you've contacted something here that you can, other people can then contact.
Have you ever read, you probably haven't got enough time to read this book because it's Jerusalem by Alan Moore. It's a massive book, that's why I'm saying this, but I got it on Audible. But I don't know if you're familiar with Alan Moore, but it's basically like the layers of history, his own life and his family disguised within the pages of the book, basically, and Northampton. And he's playing all the time with the ideas of angles and angels and, you know, buildings, and they are the architects and all this sort of thing. And within this, there is an encounter with an angel in a church. And it is unbelievably well written. You know, I mean, it blows your mind the way he's written it, because it speaks to this workman who's doing I think he is actually doing a window. I can't remember, but he's up on a scaffold, but an old, you know, back in the sort of Victorian period. And it's just like massive poles, you know, with pulleys and stuff like that. And he's doing this painting work, and in this maybe he's painting the ceiling or something, I don't know, anyway. But this angel that he's painting starts talking to him, but of course it doesn't talk to him in a language that he can really understand, and he just thinks he's gone mad. But it's brilliant the way it's done, and it just made me think of that sort of thing where suddenly you're confronted by something in whatever way that is, that you know.
I've had quite a lot of that in the past. It sort of seemed to be a phase, probably when I was working in London quite a lot. There were quite a lot of spiritual activity going on, you know, visions, and I remember going into a woods once and being confronted by what I realised to be a guardian angel, huge.
Okay, so you've got a lot of stuff then.
There's all this in the background. So the drawing with the angel was very visceral. So they wouldn't normally be that visceral, but that was interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, those type of weird experiences are difficult to describe, and it's one of those sort of things where you have to be there.
Exciting.
It's like a joke, you know, when you go, yeah, well, you had to have been there.
Adds a layer of excitement to everyday life.
Yeah. So what are you doing at the moment then?
So at the moment, I've sort of had a spate of doing up a lot of houses just to recover from life circumstances, really.
Okay.
And try and get myself in a better position. So I've done 6 years really of building work, basically. I've also been doing artwork in the background, you know, exhibiting, but not as full on. I've also been teaching. The drawing course at the cathedral only really stopped because of the COVID, you know, so that will inevitably start again. At the moment, I'm teaching a course called Active Visions of Tarot, which is just a course I've come up with through working with the tarot, working with symbolic language, working with the imagination. I mean, that's been very exciting. Got a couple of the images here. Don't know if you can.
Oh, wow.
So that's the moon.
That's lovely.
But they're not finished. I envisage them to be a book, really. I've got another one here. Oh, also not finished, the sun. And then I've got some others that here. So they've still got they've still got words to go.
Yeah.
But I can sort of see how to develop them now. As I was slightly stuck, but I'm kind of, because I've been working with the students, often when you're facilitating, you don't have the thoughts till afterwards that you for developing your own work. So they're developing their work and I'm sort of lagging a bit. But yes, I'm doing that. I've got a little online art school that meets once a week at the moment.
Cool.
I'm still on the it's called a creative pilgrimage.
Right. This is from presumably heading towards Canterbury, or are you?
Well, yeah, it's the St. Augustine Camino.
Yeah.
So it's walking from Rochester to Ramsgate.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
We're doing that in little chunks, and we're making artwork along the way, although not on the actual walks. So we're doing the walks as a group.
Yeah.
And then we're making artwork in response to that. So we had an exhibition. We had a lockdown exhibition, which was interesting. So instead of a private view, we did talks, which is actually quite well received. So that's ongoing, and we're probably going to. I'm not sure when we'll complete that. We'll probably start walking again in April after Easter, I guess, depending on life circumstances.
Yeah. I think it's dependent about when they want to salvage the economy.
Yeah.
We all suddenly get able to do things again.
I mean, I'm also in my studio quite a lot, you know, just beavering away.
Yeah, it looks a nice big space.
Yes, don't know if I can show you around a bit.
Oh, wow.
Don't know if you can see that very well. Try not to unplug the. Anyway.
Yeah.
That was part of my building work, so I managed to get hold of the house next door, which had a building attached to my house. So I've now inhabited that as my studio, which is an absolute delight after not having one for kind of 6 years.
Amazing. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, it's great. Well, I mean, it's God.
I'm also still doing a bit of freelancing here and there. Yeah. So yesterday I did some scenic painting on a film, quite interesting, down at there's a prison in Dover.
Yeah.
Disused prison. So we're in there. So what you're saying about creating scenes, you know, illusions of scenes is still going on. I'm still working for Darius, the model maker. Yeah, there's teaching. There'll be more teaching coming up.
So I like, you know, because I'm a bit like you, that I've got umpteen things on the go at once, but you know, I can't work any other way than that. It's just the way it is for me. But I know a lot of people aren't like that, and I think actually I can't imagine how people can survive not having a lot of irons in the fire. You see what I mean?
hard for a creative, maybe.
Sorry?
It's hard for a creative, I think.
Yeah.
Different strands of things going on.
Well, that's how I've always felt about stuff, and maybe actually, because in actual fact, there's a similarity between like how you got involved in art and how I got involved in music. Really, it wasn't like
involved a gnome.
Well, there wasn't a no. Well, actually, there sort of was, but not so much a gnome, but maybe a pixie, because or should I say pisky, because I lived in Cornwall. So there was that sort of gnome energy, I suppose, in that. I started work from gnome. No, I worked from gnome. I had to say that, didn't I, really? But no, that sort of thing of, finding that I was doing this thing and I hadn't realized that I was doing it type of job, like you suddenly, something's presented to you and you sort of go, yeah, I'll teach you how to do that type of thing. And then that becomes, somebody else wants to do that. So then I end up becoming a teacher, not because I trained to be a teacher. And, same thing with the sort of gigs and stuff like that. You get this and then somebody wants you to play there. But there's nothing that you sort of planned and studied and then went off and, a lot of retrospective learning.
I'm sort of excited at the moment because with the whole COVID thing, I feel I've just had to be at home a lot, obviously, like everybody. But having a teenage son now, and just having to be around all the time, and I've just decided really to streamline my life a little into doing much more artwork. And I've had a couple of lovely opportunities have come along. I made a book. I don't think I can't immediately show you that, but I made a book, basically a story down on the Thames estuary that somebody's come forward. I'm in a kind of crypto group.
Right.
Somebody's come forward from that who's got a little printing, publishing company called Mysterium. So they want to publish the book. And then I'm supporting a little startup called Edema, which is the name from one of my prints, who want to use a piece of artwork for their t-shirt, sweatshirt company.
Wow.
So that's quite, those are two nice things. And I've also entered a load of exhibitions, so it'd be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, it's good. Well, that's fantastic. I think we've been talking for quite some time, actually. So you were a bit concerned about what you were going to be able to talk about. Yeah, so you've done very well. And I've taken up most of your birthday by the looks of things. So, so have you made?
That was a lot of fun, Vic. Thank you.
No, it's great. It's nice to have a chat. It's good. So I'll put all your details in the show notes. So you have to send me some links because obviously, for most of the people, get this on iTunes and stuff like that, and Spotify and all the rest of it. So it gives them a chance to have a look at your work and all the rest of it. So if you send me some stuff, and
I will.
I'll put that on the stuff. So all the very best.
Thanks, Vic.
And thanks very much. That was really fun. Big thanks to Sonia. You can reach her through the links in the show notes. And until next time, see you then.